Rondell Crier is a multimedia artist here in Chattanooga who created a mural unveiled last year at the Hunter Museum of American Art. Flights of Hope and Healing, standing 37 feet tall on the exterior of the east wing of the Hunter, was commissioned by the museum, and students at the STEM school here in Chattanooga worked with the artist on the project. I spoke with Rondell and Nandini Makrandi, the Hunter's chief curator. Rondell, Nandini, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you for having us.
Rondell, tell us more about this mural, Flights of Hope and Healing at the Hunter.
Flights of Hope and Healing is a 37 by 13 foot mural. It's in front of, I think, the old entrance to the building. And I was commissioned to create something that was inspired by the Hunter's mission. That would be a temporary mural on site.
And Nandini, how did this project come about?
As most people know, we have these three buildings that are interconnected, and we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that walk that area every day. And the 70s structure, which Rondell's mural is in front of, is kind of stark. It's empty, and we thought adding a local artist's work might add some interest to the plaza, add some color. And of course, we went looking for local artists who we felt could handle a mural of that scale. 37 feet is nothing to be sneezed at. And we went around the city. Eventually, we chose 10 artists to invite and asked them to stay true to themselves, but also to look at the Hunter's mission of not only talking about American art, but how that relates to the community and how their work relates to the community. And of the 10 artists, 6 chose to apply, and Rondell's kind of rose to the top because he did engage with our mission, and his work personally is all about community connections. So it went together well.
And Rondell, how did you tackle this challenge?
I've worked as a muralist here and in my hometown, New Orleans, for years. But as Nandini mentioned, one thing that's, I would call primary to my work, if I can, is to engage community in what I'm doing. And so sometimes that could be very surface level, like, hey, what do you think about this design that I've done? Or like some kind of, while I'm working on it, people pass by and speak to them. So that's a level of engagement, especially with public art projects and during the process. But then you can go deeper sometimes and find community members who are artistically talented, but maybe never find ways to express that. And they can be involved from design to painting or whatever level of implementation. So I'm always open to that. For this particular project, it was nice to have such a large canvas in a very prominent exposed area, but also it's a great opportunity for when you engage community on that type of project, it makes them feel another layer of sense of pride. So I can do something in a back alley and engage them the same, but it's different when it's in such a public space. And so I always jump at opportunities like that, and it was great to do this in that way. And I connected with students at the STEM school to participate as the identified community to engage.
How did they participate in the project?
Over the years, since I work in this art field and people know me from that way, I had a studio space in East Chet. And so with STEM School had approached me throughout the years to engage with their students. So they have this, work with professional programs so that the students engage with real life companies doing real projects that they do at school, they present to their student body. And so based on that model, they approached me when I was proposing this project to the Hunter. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get it or not. So I just was like, okay, I can engage the students in something. If it follows through and I'm the finalist for the mural, then they can have a real life project to engage with. But if not, it would just be like a mock dummy project that they can work on. And so I did approach the students, and there were 3 groups, I think it was 12 students who responded to my project, so they can pick what they want. And I worked with them for 2 months, and they created some artworks, what I call creative contributions to the mural. So I told them what the theme was, gave them some sort of color palette idea, and they went off and did their own sort of projects and groups, and then proposed those to me to be included on the wall. So they are now prominently featured as a part of the mural design.
What are some of the influences that inspire you that may have manifested in this project?
I'm from New Orleans, and when I was in high school, there was a local artist there who opened kind of like an after-school art engagement program called YAYA. It stands for Young Aspirations, Young Artists. I went to vocational high school, so I spent 2 hours in my vocation of choice, which was commercial art at the time. But after school, I went to this place almost every day and just kind of learned a little bit more about the entrepreneurial aspects of being in the art business, but I wasn't focused on that. It was more like a club, but we were doing that on repeat, making artworks out of repurposed furniture and then selling them at art shows. And so just because of that practice, I think I've become kind of just connected to the idea of working with other creatives, no matter how old they are. And then it doesn't have to be through a formal process. Like, it doesn't have to be school. It doesn't have to be work. You could just kind of do things on your own, however you want to manifest like a connection and an art experience. So I took that into my adult life. I worked at the organization as an adult. And so it was just kind of an easy, natural thing for me to engage community.
What's one reaction that you've had to this mural that may have surprised you?
I don't know about surprised. I've just been fortunate that how I respond to opportunities. I try to have fun first and then try to do something that's different for me. So I don't want to get stuck in a pattern and do the same thing because it sells. So I'm always trying to explore a little bit in my own creative learning journey. But I think one thing that's great about these types of projects is that because it's in a public view, you get like sort of random people who might kind of yell like, "Hey, nice job, how you doing?" And then, occasionally people might stop and ask you tons of questions. And I like that. So it kind of prolongs the work experience as far as like execution, like progress, but it's to me a part of the experience. And so I might be planning on like, I'm going to paint this whole side over here today. And then I mix all the colors. And then somebody's like, "Hey, that's a nice job. Like, how did you come up with this?" And then I walk up to them and I talk. And maybe it's like 45 minutes later, I'm talking with them and I turn around, my paint's dry that I mixed. Mm-hmm. And the day is kind of cutting by or the rain's coming. But I enjoy it. While I do like to work in a bubble in the studio and be on my own sometimes, but this is kind of like completely opposite. And I like the variety and creativity.
Talk about the imagery and what you hope people gain from that.
Well, as Nandini mentioned, the original request proposal from the Hunter was to integrate their mission as an American institution displaying American artists' work. And at the time when I saw the email from Nandini, I was catching a plane from Chattanooga to New Orleans for, I think it was like a strategic planning meeting in New Orleans, right after the Israel-Hamas conflict started after October 7th. That was on my mind, and it was on my mind about like America, the good and bad of America, and that conflict. And so I was drawing inside of a little tiny sketchbook that my partner made for me. And I was listening to this song called "Send the Dove" by Jamila Woods. And that song inspired me to draw a bird. That was the only thing I had in the sketchbook. And when I decided to respond to the Hunter request officially, that bird kind of stood in my mind as a starting point. And I felt like it had some connection to the Palestinian reality and symbolically as well. And then also it was in sync with some of the other images of birds that I've used in the past in my own ways. So I connected that and I just sort of built off that image and just thought about, seasons changing. I have imagery of unity, and not just two-way unity, but that sometimes this requires like this kind of three-way or multi-level unity. So there's like embracing of arms in the mural. The seasons sort of play out in the corners. So there's like seasons of sun and joy and cloudiness, like the scenery of sky, water, and earth. And so I also have, along with the bird, which is the largest image on the wall, there's a big giant leaf. And again, you never really know where it comes from. I just drew the leaf and I was drawing it and I drew a heart on it inside the leaf. And like all the lines of the leaves kind of were shaped in a heart. And so again, it's trying to like, for me, connect and love, which I think is the most valuable asset that we have as human beings, even though we live in this transactional world monetarily. But I try to default to like love and compassion as an asset of ours, the best asset. When I was wondering, like, why did I draw the leaf? And I realized that in our house, there was a plant that we bought from Barn Nursery. And it's the prayers plant, and the leaf, it has that shape with those lines, and it has this like kind of heart shape in the middle of it. And I realized I was waking up every day for a year, like seeing that, and like, okay, that's where that came from. And again, it's just kind of like, you never really know as an artist where your hands start to like pull imagery from, or your spirit. Yeah, there's some meaningfulness in that way. And so I was able to incorporate all that into the design and then, add my colors to it. I originally wanted it to be black and white, so it can be different again. You see colorful murals everywhere. But then I got a message from Nandini from the museum saying, "Hey, what about some colors?" And I was like, okay, again, I'm doing a commission, and it's public art and it's community art. And so it's not just about all what I want. And so I'm able to be almost like it's like a co-created process. So I see institutions who are commissioning things as co-creators instead of it's just being my mural, it's our mural. And so I responded to that and added colors. But when I got out there, I really started exploding the colors even more so. And one thing that I want to add that's not easy to see in the mural is that because of the Israel-Palestinian conflict, I wanted to add some type of essence in honor of this sort of like Arabic land. And so I decided to find words that symbolizes like hope, love, harmony. And I used it in my design. I traced the word, and then on top of it, I reshaped the words into images. So it has a little Arabic feel to it, but those words are embedded in the wall all over. And some people who, I would assume people who are familiar with Arabic text and see it a lot, they probably could feel that more, which is intentional. And then some people would have to kind of go and search it out. But again, for me as an artist, as a creator, thinking about some of our most vulnerable populations, that was a way that I could kind of honor them in the moment.
That was the thing. I didn't know the backstory when we started down this process, and it wasn't until it was done that he kind of filled in those gaps. But when you, as a visitor, just look at it without knowing it, you see the seasons, the sun, the moon. You see a lot of unique materials, which the other muralists didn't propose. Like there's glass and metal discs, and of course the students' contribution from STEM school. And I thought the Arabic words were like representations of indigenous art from our area. So I think, to me, the important piece is that even though these symbols are pretty personal to Rondell, the universality of his approach and what people will see as they walk by are for all of us. And
for people who want to check it out, people who want to keep up on everything at the Hunter Museum, where can they go online?
huntermuseum.org.
And Rondell, for people who want to check out all that you do, where can they go online?
Well, my website is rondellcrier.com. It's RONDELLCRIER.com. The Hunter mural is one of my newer works in town, and the most recent work is at the end of ML King, the entryway into the Blue Goose Hollow Trail. I have a sculpture there dedicated in honor of the life of Bessie Smith in the Blue Goose Hollow neighborhood that once stood there. And so again, it's like two drastically different works, but it allows me to sort of exercise my creativity in ways that just kind of feel new and inspiring for me. I love making art.
All right. Rondell, Nandini, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.